Hi, welcome to GraySMR. Thank you profusely for being brave by clicking on this video today. To intentionally look fear in the eye with assertiveness and compassion is one of the most courageous acts. Through repetition of fear facing, we gain confidence in our metaphysics, in the sense that you define your reality, and you can gain further confidence towards fear-inducing exteroceptive stimuli by realizing that you can authentically handle whatever is tossed in your path. Before I continue, however, please note that this meditation is not for those experiencing suicidal intent. As I've intimated, avoidance of fear only amplifies fear, and that includes the fear that things won't get better. You are worthy. You are worthy of confronting those existential fears, and one way to do so is by reaching out to someone who you trust to uplift your best and safest self. I've also included a link to international suicide hotlines in the description box below. For those who are auditorily disabled, the phone number 988 is available if you're based in the US or Canada. If in the UK, you can receive support for suicidality by dialing 0800 689 5652. For those in Ireland, 1-800 901 909. If in Australia, one can call 13 11 14, and in New Zealand 0508 828 865. You are loved, and you've got this. Whether you are seated or are lying down, I'd invite you to now get into a comfortable position of your choosing. If you need to return to your day, I invite you to set an alarm for 30 minutes. Otherwise, feel free to drift off to sleep after this meditative exercise. The purpose of this video is to address and ideally help redress the anxiety behind death, and more specifically, the death of a loved one. Cross-culturally, death is too often deemed taboo, but what makes something taboo? Something is taboo when there is an implied or explicit banning, prohibition, or avoidance of something, usually an expression, behavior, or topic. And the rejection of the tabooed thing is based on a consensus or mass agreement that is either repulsive, sacred, or exclusive. Interestingly, death is conventionally deemed all three of these adjectives in non-Indigenous Euro-American culture. Dying is seen as materially and sensorially gross, and yet is often sanctified when associated with the afterlife, the philosophical unknown, or as a kind of dualistic side to the miracle of life. Likewise, on a biopolitical level, death is often rendered permissible or even deserved for certain beings, especially those who deviate from or even challenge the cultural majority, such as marginalized humans and non-humans. But judging something taboo only solidifies the cultural aspects which made it taboo to begin with, whilst, of course, intensifying the fear of all that is considered prescribed or elicit. Ironically, the fear of death is likely our most common underlying fear and can show up in many ways. Fear of the dark, seasonal affective disorder, health, anxiety, phobias, mania, and even panic and personality disorders. You are not alone in the slightest in your fear. And you are not alone in the solution. As we begin our meditative analysis, which will segue to affirmations at the end, I'd like for you to take 2 deep breaths with me to prime your body and, of course, further open your mind. Take a deep breath in for 3. 1, 2, 3, and when ready, breathe out, feeling the air tickle either your nostrils or your lips. It doesn't matter whether you exhale through your nose or your mouth, because your body, it knows what's best for you. On our second intentional inhale, breathe in for 4 seconds. Feel your abdomen slowly rise. Breathe in, and then hold the breath. On the exhale, breathe out for a count of 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Sinking into your resting spot. 5, 6. Great job. Great job. Great job. Great job. If any fears linger, it is safe to acknowledge them, because I am not going anywhere, and we will be addressing those together. Lean into your body's wisdom by breathing at a pace that feels comfortable and natural for you. While most of us struggle with Thanatophobia, or the fear of death, for many of us, our greatest fear isn't that we ourselves will die, but rather of the pain from loss that we experience when living. Oftentimes, these 2 fears, the fear of our own death and the fear of a death of a loved one, are entangled. What's good about that is that when we address one, we of course can address the other. To be able to address these fears offers us a sense of control, a lack of control being one of the anxieties interwoven in Thanatophobia. As death is inexorable, we may feel helpless by the idea itself of a loved one dying. If we equate death to change, this quote-unquote sub-fear, so to speak, isn't of death itself, but the inconstancy of self with our loved ones. You were born a loving person, and that is a part of you that never, ever, ever, ever changes. Nevertheless, we have all had times where we have bottled up our thoughts and feelings at the expense of a relationship. Other times, we've said misaligned truths or unnecessarily harsh words that have stung those we love. There can be a deep guilt that fuels the fear of death when we feel like we haven't truly honored others, and, of course, by extension, ourselves. What is in your control is the bravery to remedy the guilt that fuels Thanatophobia. You have it in your power to disclose past hurt with respect to offer words of forgiveness, to apologize, and to express the breadth of love you have for all of those you esteem. Complementarily, something else that amplifies thanatophobia alongside the aforementioned betrayal of values is a concurrent lack of self-forgiveness. When we are critical of ourselves, it feeds the assumption that others will be critical towards us. And even in death, we fear that our past relational oversights and errors are unforgiven when, in death or on the cusp of passing, consciousness by and large returns to a kind of overview effect. By this I mean that the brain helps to facilitate the qualia of oneness or wholeness or togetherness of and within the mind, that nothing else matters but connection. So often villainizing death, we slowly forget after we're born that death's affect is closer to the wonderment of a baby. The dying person is unshackled from trauma and human institutions and conventions and arbitrary rules. And just before our consciousness is displaced from our body, our brains are flooded with serotonin, like the brain of a newborn. Serotonin being an ancient neurochemical, which is responsible for feelings of social bonding and contentment. As consciousness returns to the intentional hands of the cosmos, everything which once hampered it in life dissolves. Death is itself a process of forgiveness, blamelessness, and, of course, painlessness. There is no room for anger in your loved one after they've left their human form or non-human form. So forgive yourself as they inevitably will. You deserve to begin to forgive yourself. You deserve to love and forgive yourself. As you continue to sink further into your place of rest today, I feel called to mention that the third origin point of thanatophobia is the idea of dependence, As living beings on this planet, reliance on others is requisite, and that kind of social kinship and connectivity is something to truly celebrate. But feelings of helplessness can arise for all of us when we view our lives through a lens of scarcity, whether that be an absence of inner resources or even external support. The overwhelming anxiety behind losing a loved one might be less about fearing our loved one's death per se, but rather what it's like to be alive for us in this world without them rooting for us. Many of those human and non-human animals who are pushed to the margins of society in some way, shape, or form feel alienation keenly, and a consequence of that can be rumination about and the attempt to forestall, at least within the confines of the mind, losing those who have truly seen our souls and loved us unconditionally. This in mind, I'd like for you to choose one way that you will give yourself purpose, separate from your relationship with your loved one. This isn't abandoning them, but rather offering yourself the same kindness that they have shown you. Perhaps you could finally sell your artwork. Maybe this is your call to campaign for unhoused peoples. Or you can concentrate a few hours of the week volunteering at a local animal sanctuary. With your idea of individual purpose in mind, breathe out the stale myth of purposelessness. And follow it with an inhale full of self-determination. Let your worthiness of a place on this planet wash over you as you continue to breathe. Next, think of two persons of any species with whom you would like to begin connecting. No one will ever replace what you have with your loved one, but there are other beings out there who can offer an additional harmony to your journey. With those two persons in mind, breathe out the myth of aloneness. And on the inhale, breathe in the truth of community. And lastly, I invite you to think of 3 characteristic strengths of yours. Perhaps you feel your best traits pop out when you are in the presence of your loved one. Take a few moments to meditate on your 3 subjective strengths. What are yours? What are yours? What are your strengths? If you can't think of any, that's okay too. If you can't think of any, you could think of 3 adjectives that you could strive for, such as being helpful, compassionate, thoughtful, honest, or comical. With these 3 adjectives or qualities in mind, exhale helplessness on your out-breath. And inhale those strengths all the way into your diaphragm. Before breathing back out, solidify them by tensing all the muscles in your body that you can, from your face and neck to your arms, hands, legs, and feet. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And release. By leaning into a wider purpose and nurturing our best traits, we honor our resilience, as well as those loved ones who have helped us to become our best selves. Excellent job. Excellent job. Continue to breathe into your body. That's it. That's it. Gently and kindly. Good job. Good job. As you continue to inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale, notice how I said breathe into your body and not breathe into you. While your physical form is there to facilitate you, you are not your body. In fact, you being synonymous with consciousness, are not anything that you can sense. Whatever you perceive is an object in your awareness. You are the mind perceiving that object. While you are not the perceived or the material, your loved ones, conversely, are the holistic concept of the interactions had with them specifically, and a reminder of shared mind, of meaning, of intention. But what does this mean exactly? What are the implications? I mention this because a fourth reason for Thanatophobia is the idea of never re-experiencing those we love. But our loved ones are a perception, a mental map or construct within the mind, albeit nonetheless real. Even as you lie here, enveloped by the warm darkness, you can recall them now. You can recall them, their essential self, to consciousness at any time you need, even after they are no longer physically here. They will be here, not only for as long as you remember, but as long as the phenomenon of consciousness remains a building block of life, of existence. Observing is as real and as creative as the cosmos itself. Even when alive, your loved ones are the home we can always return to inside ourselves. Additionally, just as you are not your body, neither are your loved ones. We are a legacy of shared consciousness, ever colliding with each other. Even if in a different form, you will never, ever lose your loved one. You will never, ever lose each other. The final origin point of Thanatophobia we will meditate upon is nihilism, or the complete absence of meaning. We too often fall into the trap of cynicism and materialism. That is, it doesn't matter. It's not that deep. Everything is empty, what have you. We catastrophize life and, of course, unfairly thrust catastrophe on to death. And yet, all of life is a reflection of the will of the cosmos. The fact that you are listening to this and co-authoring meaning within the stream of phonemes coming out of my mouth reflects the unfathomable and wildly improbable miracle of our biogenic planets, one in a centillion chance of existence. There's a term by John Keats called negative capability, which in a sense, is the ability to be excited by the unknown and the irrepressible. For me, it's not leaning into hope in the face of uncertainty, as hope implies the possibility of good and bad alternatives. Instead, negative capability is more the practice of trust. But the truth of the matter is, not a single one of us actually knows for certain the specificities of what occurs after our consciousness leaves our body. If life involved a consolidation of consciousness on our comparatively infinitesimal yet nonetheless extraordinary planet, there is so much to trust in its release. You have done an amazing job being present with me. To be present means to be far away from anxieties and assumptions, whilst becoming closer and closer to reality, to yourself, and naturally to your loved ones. You deserve love for the simple reason that you exist. You are supported by more beings and in more ways than you could ever realize. You are exactly where you need to be. The universe chose you to be family, just as you chose those you consider family, for always and right now. For the present is the only reality that matters. You and your loved ones are cosmically protected. You are safe. Your progenitors are unrestrained and infinitive energy. And we are the legacy of survivors and creators. You and your loved ones are limitless and are found everywhere. As an integral part of a cycle of redirection and transmutation of mind, death is just the next stage of our lives. You could never forget what resonates. You are in control. You are here to enjoy and to help others to enjoy. We are all in this together. You deserve love for the simple reason that you exist. You are supported by more beings and in more ways than you could ever realize. You are exactly where you need to be. The universe chose you to be family, just as you chose those you consider family, for always and right now. For the present is the only reality that matters. You and your loved ones are cosmically cosmically protected. You are safe. Your progenitors are unrestrained and infinitive energy. And we are the legacy of survivors and creators. You and your loved ones are limitless and are found everywhere. As an integral part of a cycle of redirection and transmutation of mind, death is just the next stage of our lives. You could never forget what resonates. You are in control. You are here to enjoy and to help others to enjoy. We are all in this together. You deserve love for the simple reason that you exist. You are supported by more beings and in more ways than you could ever realize. You are exactly where you need to be. The universe chose you to be family, just as you chose those you consider family for always and right now. But the present is the only reality that matters. You and your loved ones are cosmically protected. You are safe. Your progenitors are unrestrained and infinitive energy. And we are the legacy of survivors and creators. You and your loved ones are limitless and are found everywhere. As an integral part of a cycle of redirection and transmutation of mind, death is just the next stage of our lives. You could never forget what resonates. You are in control. You are here to enjoy and to help others to enjoy. We are all in this together. You deserve love for the simple reason that you exist. You are supported by more beings and in more ways than you could ever realize. You are exactly where you need to be. The universe chose you to be family, just as you chose those you consider family for always and right now. But the present is the only reality that matters. You and your loved ones are cosmically protected. You are safe. Your progenitors are unrestrained and infinitive energy. And we are the legacy of survivors and creators. You and your loved ones integral part of a cycle of redirection and transmutation of mind. Death is just the next stage of our lives. You could never forget what resonates. You are in control. You are here to enjoy and to help others to enjoy. We are all in